Hi, welcome back. John Macdonald again from ProScot. So we're now on element D on the CBT. Now please remember that because this is a presentation, I'm using a very traditional style here where I'm just transmitting information, and I really don't know if I've got experienced riders looking at this, CBT renewals, or if I've got complete novices. So I'm having to pitch this at a level that assumes that we're novices here. When you come in, of course, hopefully you've been looking at these videos, and it means that the instructor can do far more client-led, what we call coaching, asking, and if we're getting back the right information, we know that you've been watching the videos, and we'll be able to move things a lot quicker and spend more time on the bike where it really matters. So please be assured you're not wasting your time by looking at these videos. It means more time on the bike. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into the video. We're now going to look at element D, which is the session that we're going to do now before we go on the road. Now don't forget, we've done A so far, we've done B. A looked at, of course, the clothing, member legal aspects, testing eyesight. B, of course, remember, was introducing to the motorcycle. C was learning all the bike control skills in the yard to allow you to get on the road. This is us now going to have the on-road chat before we go out on the road. And then eventually we're going to do element E, which is actually going to be out on the road. Now, for the car drivers, a lot of this they'll already know. So it just really requires a bit of a modification in some respects, because not everything's the same riding a motorbike on the road as it would be driving a car. Lack of protection is an obvious one. The way you position on a motorbike is going to be another one. So suffice to say that even the car drivers will find some of this interesting and new for them. And for the novice drivers that have never driven on the road before, not even had a car lesson, not got much road experience, this is all probably going to be new. Unless, of course, you've been watching your YouTube videos and doing a bit of studying as we recommend. So hopefully you've been looking at these videos. So let's get into this one then. First thing we're going to bring up then is the legal requirements. So let's have a look here then. By bringing it up, I'd usually ask a question and say, okay, well, a motorcycle requires an MOT when it's 3 years old, same as a car. What other things do you think? And of course, I would be getting all my answers given back to me. So let's flick through it. Because I'm doing a presentation, I've got to give all the information out. So make sure you've got insurance, third party and fire and theft, or fully comp. Interestingly enough, fully comp is the best one to go for, and it quite often works out the cheapest. So get your fully comp insurance. So next one is your road tax. If it's up to 150cc, 20 quid. 151cc at 444 quid. Now remember, that's current on current rates. 401 to 600cc 67, and over 600cc 93. So if you're watching this in the future, God, it kind of feels weird making a video knowing that could be getting watched in the future here. We're in July 2020, aren't we, Lewis? Yes, we are, July 2020. This is the prices at that time. Now, next one is that, of course, provisional license. You have a provisional license. Cat A allows you to, your provisional license allows you to ride your 125s. Quite often when you look at the license, it looks like you've already got Cat A. It's not, it's a provisional entitlement you've got on it. It needs to be validated with a CBT certificate. And your AM for your moped. Used to be B on the old ones. Your car license pass. If you passed your car test after the 1st of February the 1st, 2001, it requires a CBT certificate for the moped. If however you pass your car test prior to that, you actually have what's called a full moped license. So you can ride it there without any training. We would not recommend it, but you could. You need a DL196 or the CBT certificate. That sounds like a good time now to actually show you how it looks. So there we go, that's what a certificate looks like, a blank one. Okay, there you go, that's what a blank one looks like. You get one of these. So you get a DL196, and L plates need to be on front and rear fitted, full size, don't cut them down, full legal size. And roadworthiness, well, we looked at that in element B, didn't we? Making sure your bike was roadworthy, tyres, lights, number plates, reflectors, exhaust, and of course your helmet, remember, helmet required by law, securely fastened as well, and finally that you're not under the influence of drink, drugs, alcohol, and that could even be prescribed medicine as well, of course. So look, there's all the legal aspects. That's what you need to be able to ride your 125cc out on the road there. All right, and let's move on to the next one. So that's the legal requirements. Now I'm just going to do this very quickly just to give you an idea. A lot of people are confused by the licenses. If you sit your motorcycle test, if you're age 17 and over and you sit it on a little 125, you're going to be restricted to a 125. I don't agree with that. I think that they've missed a trick there. That really should be a 33 brake horsepower and probably up to about a 300cc. Great thing about that then, it would really encourage people to go and get that A1 licence, but they don't. They just end up doing CBT and CBT only. It's such a shame. Really missed opportunity that. That should be, if you go through the trouble of setting a theory test, module 1, module 2, do all the same things that's in an A test, just that it's on a 125, you're still restricted to a 125, the same size of bike that someone is that's done a CBT. The only difference is you can now carry a pillion passenger and you can go in the motorway. Whoop to boo. Who would want to do that in a 125? I can't think of many people. So really missed a trick on that one. That should have been a 33 brake horsepower one, but never mind. And it's restricted. There's no automatic prevention. If you want to go bigger than that, you've got to sit a test again. At age 19 and above, you have the chance of getting what's called an A2 licence. If you sit a bike on at least 395cc minimum, with a power output somewhere between 33 brake horsepower, you can see what I'm talking about, 33 brake horsepower here now, and 46.6, then you can see here that you get an A2 licence, which is restricting you to a power output of no more than 46.6 brake horsepower. Now you can put a restrictor on the bike, but the bike must be not restricted to any more than 50% of its original power. So basically we're looking at bikes with a maximum power output of just under 100 horsepower. Alright, you couldn't restrict 130 brake horsepower, 600 for example, down. That wouldn't work. Alright, so that gives you an idea of the sort of bike then you could restrict it down to. Now, if you pass your test at 19 on the A2, 2 years later, you do get the chance to do what's called accelerated access, so you could still get access to the category A full power motorcycle at age 21, providing at age 19 you passed at 19. This one here, of course, is if you're 24 years of age and older, you can go straight for the full power licence. Bike has to be at least 595cc and produce at least 53.6 brake horsepower, and that would then give you a full unrestricted licence. Now, please bear in mind, you also have to have a theory pass certificate as well. You have to have a valid CBT certificate, and then you sit the module 1, the module 2 test to get access to these licences. Okay, so there's a wee bit extra for you just on the licensing laws, and that's since 2013. Now, conspicuity is a great word. This is where I'd be doing my coaching and saying to people, do you know what conspicuity means? But again, I'm doing a presentation here, so it's all one way. Conspicuity basically means making yourself visible. We talked about that in element A, and using bright coloured clothing. Reflective clothing we said was good for nighttime use. Fluorescent colours for daytime use. Doesn't have to be a day glow jacket like that. You can have different coloured clothing. Lewis, if we scan round, you'll see the type of stuff that I mean here. Bright coloured jackets and clothing here. If you look up there to Lewis on the right hand side, you'll see the dark coloured clothing there. Not going to stand out nearly as visible. And look up here, the person's got a dark coloured helmet. That's not going to stand out in the road, is it at all? Look over here to Lewis, and you can see the bright coloured clothing. Alright, so that's going to stand out. If we jump along here, there's the trousers with the bright coloured flashes on them. Here's a leather jacket with the bright coloured flashes in it. Here's a brighter coloured helmet as well. That's going to stand out a lot more. So we can make ourselves a lot more visible. And if you kind of squint your eyes through your eyelashes, you'll notice that the rider on the right with the dark coloured clothing blends into the road. So if you've got dark clothing, dark helmet, dark coloured black or silver bout, you look like you know, stealth rider. You literally blend into the road. Now, as you'll find out soon, they reckon that a third of all accidents can be could have been avoided if the rider had made themselves more visible. So conspicuity means making every effort to make yourself visible. Let's look at what sort of things. Well, they reckon that visibility aids could reduce 1/3 of all motorcycle accidents. That's typically where the driver says, sorry, I didn't see you. Junctions and that, for example. Remember, the rider's only third the width of a car. A lot of car drivers, they're not looking for motorcycles, so if you're not looking for something, your mind's not thinking about it, you don't see them. So if you make yourself more visible, then you're reducing the risk of people hitting you simply because they didn't see you. What other things can you do? Fluorescent colour during the daytime. Well, we said that. Fluorescent's great during the daytime. Unfortunately, it goes flat at night in the dark. However, we can cure that with reflective strips. You've maybe seen the workmen working at night. You're driving along the road in a car, or you've been in a car, and it picks up the reflective strips on the clothing. And you can get that built into the jackets as well. For example, in this one here, that's reflective strips up here, there in the front, and actually up over the top. These are reflective strips, and reflective strips on the pockets. They may even have it on the back, I don't know. Over the shoulders there. I think they missed a trick. They probably, there's a wee one there. They could have more on the back of that one as well. So reflective strips helps. Dipped headlights, well, we used to have the option. Nowadays, whenever you the bikes come in, new bikes nowadays come with the dipped headlights. Before, you had the option of putting them on, but we always used to recommend them anyway for making you more visible. Bright coloured helmet and clothing, well, I've already said that, make yourself visible. And also try and position so you're being seen. If you're sitting really close in behind a bus or lorry and you can't see the mirrors, then the driver can't see you. If you've positioned yourself into a vehicle's blind spot and things like that, well, the driver is looking in his mirrors, he can't see you. So always think to yourself, am I making myself invisible to other road users? So try and make yourself visible, is what we're trying to say. Keep your motorcycle clean. Well, if you've got your bike clean, the light reflects off it on the chrome and the paintwork, and again, that can be enough to catch people's eyes as well. And be aware that other motorists and road users just simply might not see you. So there's some of the steps then that you can take to try and make yourself more visible. Now, don't rely on people having seen you. Try and ride defensively so that you don't get caught up in other people's misjudgment and accidents. But by simply taking these steps in themselves, then you're reducing the risk of an accident. So conspicuity, make yourself visible. Okay, next one, vulnerability. Again, this is where I'd be saying to people, so what do you think, why do you think you're more vulnerable on a motorbike than you would be on a car, for example? And again, I'd be soaking up this information. So this is why it's so important to watch these videos, because you're going to get asked these questions. So let's look at why you're vulnerable. You could probably work most of this out yourself. Well, there's the first one. Don't let your husband or wife see this one, or mum or dad. You are 33 times more likely to be killed on a motorcycle than a car. That's a pretty scary thought, isn't it? So it's just a simple fact that there are far fewer bikers out there than car drivers, but relatively speaking, the number of accidents and fatalities for motorcyclists are very high for the percentage of motorcyclists out there. So that's why we must ride defensively, because we are very much at risk. Now, you could probably already work out yourself some of the reasons why we're more vulnerable, but if we have a look just now, for example, there is no metal shelf protection round about us, so we don't have that cage that the car drivers have with side impact protection and airbags and all the rest of it. We are exposed. So we try to ride in such a way that we imagine a bubble off to the left, off to the right, bubbles in the front and bubbles behind. You want to create space round about you. You don't want cars too close behind you, you don't want to be too close to cars in front, and you don't want people too close to the sides of you, because you don't have that metal shell round about you. What's another one? Well, you're less stable. You've only got 2 wheels contacting the road rather than 4. So a car's got 4 wheels, one in each corner, as you know, and those tyres are a lot wider, so there's a bigger contact patch and a lot more stability. And that's on, of course, windy days, poor road surfaces and issues, slow speed on a car. The car's got balance built in, so we have balance issues, we've got stability issues, we've got problems with the weather, problems with the road surface, and you've only got 2 wheels and a relatively small contact patch, which we'll come on to. So a small contact patch in the road surface about the width of the palm of your hand. So if you think about that, there's not an awful lot of rubber on the deck, is there? And you're less visible than larger vehicles. So people are looking out for cars, lorries, buses, etc. Their mind's thinking like that. They're not really tuned in for motorcyclists, and even when they do look for the motorcyclists, you're much narrower, about the third the width of a car, for example, so not nearly as easy to see, especially if you're coming straight towards, like my hand now moving across, easy to see, but if we do that, much harder to see. All right. The weather conditions are going to affect you, so high winds, fog and mist reduces visibility, but of course the problem with the motorbike, if you are involved in an impact, then you don't have that protection round about you. Cold days, so it's snowing, icy, not only are you getting cold on the motorbike, it's affecting your concentration, but we've got the tyre grip trade-off, not as much grip, etc. So the weather conditions, heavy rain, you've not got wipers to switch on, you've not got demisters and air conditioning, etc. So the weather conditions, especially extreme weather conditions, can affect us an awful lot more on a motorbike than the average car driver. And of course, the road surface conditions themselves. You could have loose gravel, wet leaves, water, standing water, we mentioned, snow, ice, etc. So just be aware then that the weather conditions, extreme weather conditions, and it doesn't even need to be extreme weather conditions, just certain types of weather conditions can really affect us on a motorcycle, and the road surface conditions have much more effect on a motorcyclist than they would do in a car driver. Even simple things like turning into and out of junctions where there could be loose gravel, oil spilled, or manhole covers. Car drivers turn in and out of those situations, and 9 times out of 10 don't even notice it, don't even think about it. The motorcyclist needs to be scanning the surface all the time, looking for those colour changes where there could be texture changes and grip level changes as well. So accept then that you're much more vulnerable on a motorbike than you're going to be in a car. You've got relatively, especially in a 125, relatively small power output, so that's going to have an effect as well on your ability to accelerate, keep up the general flow of traffic as well. So that can also be a factor, especially when you get into the more open roads. In the built-up areas, admittedly, not so much of a problem, 20, 30, even up to 40, but if you start getting out in the national speed limit roads, maybe even venturing onto the dual carriageways where the speed limits are moving up to 70, you could find your little 125 struggling to keep up with the general flow of traffic, especially if it's going uphill or into a headwind, for example. So I think we just need to say then, going back one, so I think we'll accept that you're a lot more vulnerable on a motorbike than you're going to be in a car, alright? And indeed any other road vehicle for that matter. So let's have a look at the next one. Speed. This is where I'll be asking people about how do you think we decide what speed to ride our motorbike, what sort of factors are going to determine speed, all these sort of things. And it's interesting to get a chat and see what kind of feedback I'm getting. If I'm getting the right answers and it's quite clear I've got people who've got a good handle on how and where to use speed, for example, the speed limit is not a target that must be achieved at all costs. It's there as a maximum speed, but can only be done if the level of danger which is present is not that much that would prevent you from doing the maximum speed limit. In other words, when the road is hazard free, then we are looking for, if it's safe to do so, to move towards the maximum speed limits, especially if the bike's capable of doing that. However, you should ride at a speed that's appropriate to the road, the traffic, the weather conditions, and taking into account the level of danger which is present. So let's have a quick look at what it says about speed then. This motorcyclist has decided to go past the school here. We've got to assume it's probably 20 mile per hour because he's doing 15, he or she's doing 15. We've got kids on the pavement, and the motorcyclist isn't positioned that far over to the right, so I've got to assume that there's potentially an oncoming hazard towards them, because the obvious thing here to do is probably move a bit more away from the kids without going too far to the right, of course. But what the rider has really done here is made an adjustment on the speed. Because of the school, the kids on the pavement, somebody might jump off, so the rider has adjusted the speed down. So this is what we say that you shouldn't try to achieve the maximum. The maximum speed limit is not there as a target to be achieved at all costs. It can only be done if it can be done safely. So we should always ride then at a speed that suits the road, the traffic and the weather conditions and takes into account the level of danger present. We should also take into account the legal speed limits and realise that they are there for a reason, that we should not be exceeding them. The consequences of speeding, of course, are that you've got increased stopping distances, you can become involved in an accident, and then of course there's the legal aspect that you're breaking the law and you can end up getting points on your licence and even losing your licence. Of course, the consequence is riding too slow. This is where you're overreacting to the level of danger or just certainly not getting up the speed limit when you could do it. Is you're holding up, frustrating other drivers, potentially forcing them into overtakes that they might not normally have taken. So you can cause frustration. In other words, we need to balance the speed and use the speed wisely. So final point here then we're sort of saying is develop a defensive riding style then so that you can always stop within your range of vision and deal with the hazards. Always ride within your ability. So what we're basically saying here is ride at a speed that would allow you to stop within the distance you can see to be clear whilst remaining on your side of the road, and never exceed your own ability. Other riders might be riding faster than you, but they may have the experience to be able to do that safely. So be prepared to drive at a speed that suits your ability. Okay, so going back one then. So basically what we're saying is when we take on the road, we want you to ride at an appropriate speed for the road, the traffic, the weather conditions and your ability. Your instructor will help you with this as well. We should see those speeds increase as you ride round the route. Okay, on to the next one. Highway code. Right then, well, you should own a current copy of the highway code, and you should refer to the highway code. It lays down all the rules for everyone. Again, this is where we typically want to ask questions about the highway code, particularly to the novice riders here. Now, I know my office tell you this. They'll tell you that if you're a novice rider, get into your highway code, read your highway code. They'll tell you to watch the YouTube videos. They'll tell you to sit in the seat with mum and dad and go out and get mum and dad to point out things to you at roundabouts and junctions. Even we advise going out with mum and dad and stand and watching what happens at junctions, emerging, turning in, and also at crossroads and at traffic lights and filter lights and pedestrian crossings and roundabouts and junctions. Why? Because it's quite scary going out on the road for the very first time. And if you've already put a bit of work into this, it's going to make life so much easier for you. Now, we're going to be asking you questions, and if it's quite clear you've not done any studying at all, you've not been watching our videos, and you've not been putting any work and effort in, and we're asking basic questions, and you're not able to tell us the answers, and then we take you out on the road and you really are beginning to scare us, then I'm telling you now, we're just going to bring you straight back in again and tell you to go away, do your homework, and then come back again. It's as simple as that. We don't want to see anyone getting hurt out there simply because they don't know the rules of the road at all. Now, we're not expecting you to be anywhere near the level of knowledge that full car licence holders should have. Having said that, I've been asking a few basic questions to the full car licence holders, and I've been shocked sometimes that some of the basic questions that I ask that even full car licence holders can't answer. So please make sure you've put your work and effort in before you come on the course. Have a look through your highway code, have a look at YouTube videos and that, and make sure you've got the journals. Now, let's have a quick flick through. Highway code here, you should own and refer to current copy. Make sure you're keeping yourself up to date, especially if you're maybe going driving or riding in an area that you're not familiar with. It may be an area that's got tram cars in it, for example. Or do you know what the signs mean? There might be certain lanes, bus lanes with certain operation times. Do you know what all that means? Signs that you've never seen before. So, you know, don't just get comfortable riding in your own area. You might be going somewhere else and you might need to know. It gives us the knowledge to ride safely, and that's for all road users. All right, so that's everyone from car drivers, lorry drivers, bus drivers, cyclists, pedestrians, people on horseback, etc., etc. It's designed to keep us all safe on the road, and that is the whole thing about the highway code. Sometimes we see road rage out there, and you usually find that there's someone that's perhaps not applied the correct highway code rule. So watch that you're not the one that's getting yourself all worked up and upset when it's in fact you that's got things wrong. I'm not saying that road rage is good, it's not, it shouldn't be happening out there, but there are some people that get themselves really upset when if they look at the highway code they'll find out they're actually in the wrong. Now, this is where we start to ask questions about the highway code. I'm going to put some of them up here where we're going to ask questions about, for example, and I'll go back one, questions about the traffic light sequence. We want to know, do you know the traffic light sequence and the order of traffic lights? Do you know what filter lights are? What does it mean, a left filter light? Filter light for going ahead, for going right. Pedestrian crossings, do you know the different types of pedestrian crossings? Do you know what the procedures are at pedestrian crossings, when you can go, when you can't go? What's the rules for overtaking? Can you overtake on approach to pedestrian crossing? Can you overtake within the zigzag areas? Can you park within the zigzag area? Should you wave people across the crossing? What's the difference between a zebra crossing, a pelican crossing, a toucan crossing, a Pegasus crossing, or a preferred crossing? Do you know all these different things? Junctions, we'll be asking you about priority at junctions, T-junctions for emerging, for turning in. We're going to be asking you the difference between a giveaway sign and a stop line. What's an open junction? What's a closed junction? If you're finding that some of this stuff doesn't mean an awful lot to you, you really need to get yourself into your highway code. We'll be asking you about crossroads, what's meant by offside and near side. When should you use offside? When should you use near side? What is it that dictates offside and what dictates near side? Give you some clues. It's going to depend on the stagger, the layout of the crossroad. It's going to depend on any road markings which are present and the position of the opposing vehicle. What about roundabouts? Do you know your procedures at roundabouts? Do you know you should approach a roundabout for going left, for going straight on, for going right? What does the highway code say? Now I'm going to add another little bit, and I'm going to jump out of the classroom here, from here, and jump into the classroom next door and talk a little bit through some of this stuff. But it's just to give you an idea that you really need to get your head into highway code. All right. Okay, so we're now in the classroom for element D, and this is the sort of thing that we would have a chat to the novice riders especially with, to make sure they're comfortable. So just to give you a little idea of what you need to be looking at. Here's a T-junction here, this is the main road here, this is the side road, and we'd be explaining how to emerge left out onto a main road from a minor road, and how to emerge right from the minor road or the side road out onto a main road. We would also be explaining how to turn right from the major road into the side road, and how to turn left from the major road into the minor road on the left. Now this is a routine called the Observation Signal Manoeuvre Routine, OSM. In a car it's MSM. The reason for that is in a car you've got effective mirrors. On a motorbike it's usually a combination of your mirrors and your rearward glances, so that's why it's observation. So the first thing we do is we identify the junction up ahead. Is it a giveaway junction? Is it a stop junction? How far away is it? So we make an assessment of the junction. Then we use the OSM PSL routine. We check our mirrors so we can see the position, speed of following traffic, be fully aware of what's happening behind you just as much as in front. Give the appropriate signal in the correct time so that you're warning others of your intention either to go left or to go right. So hence observation, signal. The next thing's the manoeuvre part, in which case we're now manoeuvring, which means getting the motorcycle into the right position, adjusting the speed, and then looking as we approach the junction. Now, generally speaking, we position closer towards the centre line, but without any part of the motorcycle going over the centre line, providing it's safe to do so. When going left, we move slightly left of the centre, about a metre roughly from the pavement. So there's our two position now. If we're making a movement over to the right, we would also consider a shoulder check, just to make sure it's safe, to make sure nobody's overtaking us. And if it's required, we would do a quick shoulder check to left before moving over as well. So that's us getting ourselves into the appropriate position. Once we get into appropriate position, we're going to be reducing our speed. Now, your speed on approach to a give way or a stop junction is going to be determined by a number of factors. For example, if this is what we call an open junction, that is, there's clear as open views to the left and to the right and you can see nobody's coming, then typically you can get out there at sort of 10 mile per hour, as maybe even as much as 10 to 12 mile per hour, just to give an idea of ballpark figure speeds, and typically getting out in about second gear. If however it's a closed junction, which means that you can't see, the zone of vision is restricted typically by walls, then you're going to come up slower and being prepared to stop. So you're going to be slower on approach here, typically down to sort of 10 mile per hour, 5 mile per hour, down to walking pace. And if you still can't see, you're scanning to look and you still can't see, you need to be prepared to stop. Because the thing to remember is that the side road must give way to the traffic on the major road if it's a give way junction. If it's a stop junction and it's got this, stop, and a sign like that, well, it means you must stop. By law, you're required to stop. Typically it'll be a stop junction if the vision's heavily restricted. It would be a stop junction. A give way junction means you must be prepared to stop, but if it's clear and it's safe to emerge, then you would emerge. So, once you've got yourself in the right position then, your speed is going to be determined by vehicles in front, any hazards up here, whether it's an open or a closed junction, what type of junction it is. If it's a stop junction, you're going to be approaching at a speed that you need to be able to stop, for example. And if it's a give way junction, as you come up, your vision's still heavily restricted by bushes, hedges, walls, so what we call a restricted zone of vision, then you're going to be coming up much slower. And if you still can't see when you're at least 2 to 3 bike lengths back, you make the decision to stop. If you got here and there was parked cars either side and you still couldn't see, you would creep and edge out, what we call creep and peep technique, just sort of edging forward slowly until your zone of vision opened up past the cars and you could see it was clear and it was safe, and that by emerging you wouldn't cause any traffic on the major road to have to slow down, brake or change direction. Then you would emerge. Alright, now if you're emerging left and you've been sat there for a little while, quick check on the left hand shoulder just to make sure no nobody's come up the inside, final check, and then off you go. As you're pulling out, you've got to remember that any traffic coming from this right hand side here, you give yourself enough time to effectively be able to walk across the road and walk back, because you'd be moving into the path if there was anyone coming from your right. So that's why you need at least time to walk across, walk back, and that's a way of judging it, especially for the novices. The car drivers are a bit more experienced obviously at this sort of stuff, and they're able to judge speed and distance a lot better. But that's one of the things that the novice riders always find a bit difficult, is when is it safe to pull out? Well, imagine have I got time to walk across, time to walk back if you're moving into the path of a vehicle. Once you get out, you do the new road check sequence, cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, and you would check your mirrors to make sure that it's safe and to determine an appropriate rate of acceleration. If, for example, somebody's coming up quicker behind, you might accelerate a bit quicker. If, however, you've emerged out here, got the best vision you could, and as you're pulling out, you notice somebody's coming up fast, then you might need to accelerate a bit quicker than normal. And if someone is in the process of overtaking you in any situation, then you might reduce your rate of acceleration to let them get past. So this is why you check your mirrors, to effectively determine an appropriate rate of acceleration. So that's what we call the new road check sequence. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, check the display mirrors to see they've cancelled, check to make sure they've cancelled, and then check in your mirrors before you accelerate. Let's suppose you're going right. Again, same routine. Mirrors, signal in the good time, checking the shoulder to make sure it's safe, and then take up the appropriate position for turning right. Again, the same rules apply, observing, making sure it's clear and it's safe. If it is clear and it's safe, and by emerging you're not going to cause any traffic on the major road to slow or brake, then you can emerge out. Of course, again, if your vision's heavily restricted, or you can't see, or there's parked cars, or it's a stop junction, you can't see, you must make the decision then to stop. Again, the same rules apply. Make sure it's absolutely safe before you emerge out. If there's parked vehicles, remember, restricting view. You've got to edge out, creep out until you can see past those vehicles before you can emerge. But remember, stop junction means just that. By law, you must stop. A giveaway junction, as long as you can see it's clear, you can pull out if it's safe to pull out. So that's your basic left-hand emerge, basic right-hand emerge. Once you enter the new road, same thing, cancel signals, check they've cancelled, check your mirrors. Now when you're moving across the path of a vehicle, you need at least once to be able to walk across the road, one side of the road. Remember, if you're moving into the path of vehicle, you need at least 2, because if you're moving into the path, then that needs more time if you're working on your time and distance. So there's your basic left-hand emerge, there's your basic right-hand emerge. The right-hand turn in, left-hand turn in now from the major road to the minor road. Again, we have to spot the junction, carry out the OSM PSL routine, checking the mirrors, signal in good time. Just to give you an idea, if it's 20 mile per hour stretch you're on, you're doing the signal about 40 metres, about double the speed in metres. If it was 30 mile per hour stretch, your meter signal would be on typically about 60 metres. That's just a rough guide, just to give you an idea of distance. Shoulder check to make sure it's safe before you move over towards the centre line. As close to the centre line as safe to do so without actually overhanging the centre line. Reducing the speed of the bike down. If there's nobody coming towards you and it's safe to go in, of course, you carry out your final lifesaver look over your shoulder, right hand shoulder, about 2 to 3 bike lengths or at least 1 to 2 seconds before you turn, to make sure it's safe, nobody's overtaking you before you turn in. Now if it is unsafe, then you must have time to stop before you commit to turning in. No point starting to turn and then looking over your shoulder. Once you get in, again, cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, check the mirrors. Now if there is a car coming and you can't get in without causing that car to slow down, brake or change direction, then you must stop. Wait till it's passed, check your lifesaver again, make sure it's safe, and then turn in. If you're going left, you'll be getting an idea by now. Again, spot the junction, carry out your mirror checks, make sure position, speed of following traffic, signal in good time, warning others of your intention. If necessary, checking your left hand shoulder before you position over. This is especially true if you're positioned further to the right than normal for some reason. Maybe you've been passing parked cars or given more room from some sort of hazard, maybe children at the side of the road or an elderly person. Maybe you've been positioned further to the right. You've left a gap up your near side or your left hand side. You'd want to check it's safe before you move over. This is especially true if you're maybe in a cycle lane or in slow moving traffic. You'd want to check, and especially here before you turn in, to make sure nobody's coming up your left hand side. So once you get into the appropriate position, reducing the speed down again, make sure it's safe as you're looking into the junction. As I say, if necessary, checking the left hand shoulder, make sure it's safe before you turn in. Again, if you can turn in without stopping, your speed's really determined by the vision that you've got as you go in, but around about 10 mile per hour in that kind of range is typical, and usually turning in second gear. Most of the times you'll find yourself going out in first gear unless it's an open junction, and most of the times you'll find yourself turning in usually in second gear unless you're having to go in slower because it's tight or there's hazards or you're having to stop for oncoming traffic. Please remember that pedestrians take priority, so the pedestrian always takes priority. So we don't want to scatter them like pigeons. So if a pedestrian's walking across the road, let them get off the road first. So that's the basics of the junction for the left hand emerge, right hand emerge, right hand turn in, left hand turn in, that we'll be making sure that you understand, and your instructors will go over that with you. Quickly just jumping over this one loose and sticking with the junction concept. This is a roundabout here. The whole idea roundabout, traffic's orbiting in a clockwise direction. You give way to traffic from your right. So if there's any traffic on the roundabout, you must be prepared to slow down, stop and give way. So you're looking to stop, but being prepared to go is probably a nice way to word that one. So again, we get lane markings like this here, showing that there's 2 lanes on approach to the roundabout. Left-hand lane for going left, right-hand lane in this case for going straight on and right. This one here, the left-hand lane's for going left and straight on. This one for going right. And this one here is showing that the left-hand lane's for going left and can also be used for going straight on. And the right-hand lane can be used for going straight on and for turning right. So basically, you can have different road marking layouts is what we're trying to say. If you don't see any road marking layouts, then you split it as follows. Left-hand half for going left and straight on. Right-hand half for going right. So in that case, it's that one there that you would assume if there was no lane markings. So first thing to say about the roundabout then is look ahead, identify any road signs, any road markings, check your mirrors, be aware of what's happening behind you. Again, give the appropriate signal. If you're going left, taking the first exit, you would signal left. If you're turning right, anything beyond the 12 o'clock position, you'd be signalling right on approach. If you're taking an intermediate exit or going ahead, then you don't signal an approach. Again, this is all in your highway code. Again, same rules apply as it was over there. If necessary, checking the left shoulder before you move to the left. If necessary, checking your right shoulder if necessary, if you're making a change of direction to go to the right. But getting yourself into the correct position in good time so you're commanding the correct road position. Once you're in the road correct position, you're then going to reduce your speed on approach to the roundabout, taking, as you can see here, observations to the right, so you're fully assessing the traffic flow coming around the roundabout, adjusting the speed as you come up, trying to create a safe gap and opportunity to flow into the roundabout. If, however, you're reducing your speed down and you're looking, and also not just looking to the right, but looking ahead, so we call that scanning, and there's still not a safe gap to get onto the roundabout, then quite clearly you have to slow down and stop. Now, as you're slowing, you'll be downshifting through your gears if you've got a clutch geared bike, being ready then to stop. Once you see a safe gap, you would then move off. In this case, if you're going to the left here, again, the new road check sequence, cancel the signal, check they've cancelled, check your mirrors. If you're going straight on, you would stay in the left-hand lane if you've approached in this position, left-hand lane for going through. You'd signal left the instant you pass the previous exit before the exit you require. Well, if you require this exit, you've passed the previous exit at this point here, so that's where you put your signals on. Check your mirrors first. Signal, you're observing to left for any danger here. Once you've passed that danger, a little right-hand shoulder check, just to make sure that nobody's straight lining through and going to cause an impact at this point here. Never do that right-hand shoulder check there until you've passed any danger that's sitting at the roundabout ready to come on. So there's your position that you would take for going through the roundabout in the left-hand lane. Let's suppose you were going straight through in the right-hand lane. Well, same rules. Mirrors, no signal and approach, positioning in the right-hand lane, which would be like this one or this one. Up again, observing to the right, making sure it's clear and safe to be able to emerge onto the roundabout. Adjusting the speed, being prepared to stop if necessary. Always remember vehicles in front might stop as well, when, even if it's safe to go. So you always got to make sure you're not just looking to the right, but you're also being aware of what's happening in front. And make sure the lead vehicles move off safely before you commit to going onto the roundabout. They might move and then brake again, and if you're looking to the right and pulling on, you would drive into the back of them. So again, here you notice that the rider goes onto the roundabout, signals left as soon as they pass the previous exit before the exit required. Check the mirrors first, signal left. Notice this time, though, it's a left-hand shoulder they're checking, because of course they're exiting off the roundabout and they're looking for any danger coming around their left-hand side or the near side. In other words, you're looking to when you're doing a shoulder check, you're looking to where the potential danger is. So going around there, I'm looking to the left just to make sure the driver's seen me, he's not going to pull out in front. And as I pass that danger, I'm having a quick look to the right to make sure nobody's going to impact me here. If I'm going straight on, I'm already in the right-hand lane, so there's not going to be a danger on the right, but I am aware of danger coming onto the roundabout, and then as I come off, making sure it's safe for coming off. If I'm turning right, again, I'm checking my mirrors, I've signalled right, I'm checking my right shoulder to make sure it's safe for moving over and commanding the correct road position. Remember we said on approach, get into position nice and early, command the road position. Again, once you're in position, adjusting your speed. Your rate of approach, as we've said earlier, determined by what's happening on the roundabout. Preparing to stop, but looking to go if it's safe to go. Again, adjusting the speed down. Of course, if there's no gap to get on, you'll be coming forward slow and slower, to the point that if there's no gap at all, of course you must stop. If there is a safe gap comes up, then it's safe to go on, enter on. This is why it's important as you're slowing that you're selecting the appropriate gear as you enter on. So once you get on, again, you'll be signalling right all the way around here, signalling right. Again, this is the exit you require. There's the previous exit finishes here. So as soon as you get to this point, check your mirrors first, signal left, and then check your left-hand shoulder again because you're exiting off the roundabout. And once you come off again, check the signals have cancelled, check your mirror, check they've cancelled, and check your mirrors. Now very, very quickly, Lewis, these are the sort of things we would go through with a novice rider. If you're a novice rider, we go through the traffic light sequence, make sure you know what the sequence is. Red, stop. Red and amber, sorry, I didn't have an amber pen. Red and amber, yes, a lot of people think it is red, get ready to go, but it still means stop. Don't go unless your exit's clear. Move off, sorry, don't move off until it's green. Once you get the green, you move off providing your exit's clear. So if the junction was blocked, then you can't move off. Unless you were turning right and you were prevented from doing so by other vehicles waiting to turn right at a crossroads, for example, or oncoming traffic. From green, it goes back to amber, which means that if you're too close to try and stop safely, you would continue through. But if you can't stop safely, you would obviously stop and then be prepared to stop back on the red. So the only one that really means go, if it's clear to do so, is your green. So make sure you know your traffic light sequences. Make sure you know what filter lights mean. This is the left arrow. This is for going ahead if it's pointing up the way. This is for going right. So if you saw the arrows doing this, it means that you can only go left and ahead. If it's a full green light, it means you can go in all directions that are available to you. So if you've got left, ahead and right, you can go in all directions. If, however, that came on only, it means you can only go to left and ahead. And then you might see just the arrow to the right going on, which means you can go to the right. Okay, you can now go to the right. So make sure you know your traffic lights, make sure you know. Pedestrian crossings, make sure you look in your highway code at your pedestrian crossings, the different types. Do you know what a zebra crossing is, for example? How do you operate them? Well, when you approach them, look for the zebra crossing, look for the signs of the big flashing lights, look for the zigzags, look for the signs warning you there's a pedestrian crossing on approach. Use your OSM PSL routine, so you make your initial assessment of the pedestrian crossing. Is there anyone standing there looking like they want to use it? Check your mirrors, what's happening behind me, if I do need to brake or slow, is there anyone close behind? Showing a brake light would be the signal, observation signal, brake light warning them that I might need to slow down to stop here. Be in the appropriate position on approach and appropriate speed. Generally speaking, if there's anyone standing there, then you should anticipate them wanting to use the crossing, although the highway code makes it quite clear it's when they physically step on it, but a lot of people don't know that. So if anyone's standing there looking like they want to use it, be prepared now to slow down and obviously stop and give way to them. All right, so we will cover pedestrian crossings and make sure you know them, so swap your pedestrian crossings as well. We'll be going through a few. Quickly over here, Lewis, I'm aware of time here. Speed limits, make sure you know your speed limits and your signs, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. We'll even have you out national speed limit of your 125. Here, for example, Lewis, we look here, we've got a road layout. You can get signs at the end of a road and obviously at the start of a road. If I'm going that way, it's the end of the road, but if I'm going that way, it's effectively the start of the road. Now, what I'm showing here is different speed limits in this area. 20s here, 30 in this here area here, and 40s over here, and national speed limit 60 single carriageway going out the way. So someone going out that way would see, being a 30 here, for example, they see the two national speed limit signs, 60, but coming another way, they would see 30 signs. Here, for example, coming in the way, they're going to come in and see 230 signs, but going out the way, they would see 240 signs on the other side of the sign. Here, going across there, because that's a 30 and you're going into a 30, notice there's no more signs. So if you look into a road and there's no signs there, or no signs at the end of the road, it means the road that you're going onto is the same speed as the road you've just been on. So make sure you know your speed limit signs. Here, for example, going along a 30, going into a 20, it would say 220s on either side of that going out the way. But coming in the way, it would say 20 ends, and it would tell you it's a 30 going in. So make sure you know about your speed limit signs, how to identify them, how they're marked out as well. We go over that. We also go over things like this, the crossroads, what we call, if I did that, a crossroad in effect, if I did that, is just like a T-junction. So it's like two T-junctions back to back. Make sure you know what's meant by offside to offside and near side to near side, and what determines which one to use. Well, the highway code tells us this is the preferred method, but it's not always the best for a biker. There's potential danger if you try and turn right going around the back of someone. They're turning right there, you're turning right here, and if you try and go around the back of them when they're trying to do this, then they could potentially knock you off your bike. So do watch out for the near side to near side, offside to offside. My preferred method on an inline crossing like this would be to stop short and force what we call near side to near side. That is nearest side to the pavement. But the problem with that one, of course, is if that's a larger vehicle, your view would be blocked. So it's better to let them turn first before you would then turn in. Now, what determines whether you're going near side to near side, offside to offside? Highway code's pretty clear on this. It'll depend on the stagger or the layout of the crossroad. It'll depend on the position of the opposing vehicle and any road markings that are present. So again, make sure you understand how to turn right. If you're emerging out of a crossroad, the vehicle that's going left or going straight on takes priority over the vehicle that's emerging to turn right across the path. If both vehicles want to emerge right to come out of side roads at a crossroad, then it's determined by the following rules basically. The vehicle that starts to move first, well, you let that go first. You might get the person opposite flashing lights and waving at you, it's only warning the presence. But if you can see it's clear and it's safe to go, then proceed with caution. If the other person's sitting looking at you, you're looking at them and you can see it's clear to go, then again, go with caution but prepare to stop if necessary. So again, look at your crossroads, make sure you know how crossroads work, both for give way, stop control crossroads and traffic light controlled crossroads. So I've mentioned the crossroads, so I've mentioned T-junctions, we've mentioned the roundabouts, and I've mentioned some pedestrian crossings. You get the idea. We will go over all this stuff. We will ask you questions and we want to make sure you've been looking at your highway code and you've got some ideas. But that just gives you an idea of the sort of stuff that we go over. Okay, thank you. Let's go back, continue with element. Now, ride defensively, anticipations, the next one we're going to be talking about. Now, again, this is when I say to people, what do you think is meant by riding defensively? What do you think we mean by anticipation? So let's have a little look at this one now then. Here's a picture. We've got the motorcyclist coming up here, proceeding along the road. We've got a lorry on the parked at the side, or is it parked at the side? A red car here, looking like it's getting ready to come at the junction. Purple car, we've got pedestrians here, and we've got a cyclist. Now, this motorcyclist here driving along, presumably, maybe hasn't seen the pedestrians or the cyclists. May have seen them from further back, but may not have. The van driver here may be parked, but may actually be waiting to turn right and position more to the left so they can turn into the junction. It may be the indicator's not working or wasn't turned on. The driver might be about to open the door and jump out. This red car may be about to go left, and if the motorcyclist moves out, is he moving into the path of the red car? Is this purple car really going left, or has the signal been left on? The lorry driver might be flashing the lights here for all we know, for the red car to come out. In other words, there's lots of different things. The cyclist might be about to turn right. The pedestrian might be walk across the road. So the cyclist, the motorcyclist, we'll move back now, Lewis. So the motorcyclist, in other words, must approach that situation and ask themselves the question, what if? Riding defensively then means riding in such a way that you're not getting involved in other people's accidents. It's using your OSM PSL routine so that you can approach all hazards systematically and safely, so that you've checked what's happening behind you, your position, speed of falling traffic, given the appropriate signal that may be required, taking up the appropriate position and approach to the hazard to minimise risk, correct positioning, adjust your speed for approach to the hazard, again to reduce risk, so approaching an appropriate position, appropriate speed, and then continuing to look. And that's further broken down into look, assess, decide what action. So ladder. So OSM, PSL. Observation, checking your mirrors or rearward glances, signal appropriately. The manoeuvre is broken down to position, speed, and look's broken down into ladder. Look, assess, and decide what action. So the rider here must take all that into account to ride defensively, and anticipation basically means expecting the unexpected. Being prepared for the what if. If you prepare for the worst, you're always a step ahead. So that's what I mean by ride defensively and anticipation. So, expect unexpected, look well and plan well ahead. Scan into the distance, the midground, the foreground, out to the sides of your mirror. Have a full 360-degree observation all round about you. So planning ahead, looking for the hazards, make sure you handle them safely. Developing what we call hazard awareness. A hazard is anything that could put you potentially at danger. It could cause you to have to slow down, brake, or change direction. Hazards fall into basically three categories. Fixed physical features such as junctions, crossroads, roundabouts, traffic lights, bends. They're usually identified by road signs, road markings, or the actions of other drivers, or through line of sight. Then the next group of hazards, the moving, developing hazards. These are your car drivers, your lorry drivers, your bus drivers, your cyclists, your motorcyclists, etc. So it's all about trying to anticipate what they're going to do. Your final group of hazards, of course, is your environmental hazards, your weather conditions and road surface conditions. So your job as a motorcyclist is to look out for these hazards and to try and identify these hazards. Next one then is to concentrate at all times. Okay, concentrate at all times. Now, you need to, if you're not concentrating, if you're not focusing, and your mind's drifting elsewhere, I could tell you now, you're not going to have a good observation skills, you're not going to have good planning skills, you're not going to have good anticipation skills, and you're certainly not going to be identifying the hazards, therefore you're not going to be riding defensively. So you need to be able to concentrate and focus, keep your mind on the job. Continue on with this theme then. Good anticipation is a skill then, which is going to develop with time and experience. A lack of anticipation can show up as follows. Now you could probably work out what some of these are going to be: late harsh braking, etc, etc. So let's see the sort of things I've got down. Later harsh braking, that's an example of someone not seeing the dangers, not seeing the hazards, so they're reacting to things. They're what we call a reactive driver as opposed to an anticipative driver or rider. Being easily distracted, losing their concentration, looking round about them and having their mind drifting. Not taking the road surface and the weather conditions into account. Good motorcyclists riding defensive and anticipation should always be taken into account. The roads, the weather conditions, ever-changing weather conditions, and the road surfaces, and build that into their riding plan. Not positioning away from danger. That's another classic example we see. You know, if you've got parked cars, you've got to move out at least the door's length if it can be done safely, just in case somebody opened the door. And if you could do it, give more room without affecting anyone else and misleading anyone else, then you would give more. So basically, if you're not positioning away from danger, then we've got to ask ourselves the question, are you aware there is danger? Excessive speed through hazards. Again, this is someone that's underestimating the level of danger which is present, flying through the hazard, and then sooner or later they're going to get themselves into trouble. Alright, so going back one then. So basically, riding defensive anticipation, we're looking for that when we go out into the road. Okay, now the car drivers should really know what I mean by this sort of stuff. Now, next one, rear observation. Well, we already did that in element C, where you were taught how to use your mirrors and rearward glances. Now, we call it observation on motorcycle OSM, observation signal manoeuvre, not MSM, mirror signal manoeuvre. The reason for that is in a car you've got a central main mirror, you've got your wing mirrors or door mirrors as they used to be called, external mirrors, had various names over the years. On a motorbike you've got your two mirrors either side, no central mirror, very narrow motorcycle, third the width of a car, don't forget. This leaves large blind spots to the left and to the right and immediately behind your motorcycle. So you sometimes have to combine your mirror checks with rearward glances so that you're taking what we call effective rear observation. So effective rear observation is a combination of mirror and shoulder checks so that you're keeping yourself fully updated and fully aware of what's happening behind you, particularly before you move off, before you stop, before you signal, carry out any type of a manoeuvre, before you are going to adjust your speed, before you're going to slow down, before you're going to accelerate, before you're going to alter position, moving to the right, moving to the left. Why do we want to check our mirrors before we slow down? Well, we could have a hazard behind us, we're responding to a hazard in front, no point slowing down too quickly only to get hit with a hazard behind. So it determines a safe rate of deceleration based on what we see. Same as if we're going to be accelerating, there are times when we want to accelerate quicker. We've looked in the mirrors, somebody's catching us up fast, we've pulled out of a junction, we accelerate quickly up to an appropriate speed. There may be times when we have somebody trying to overtake us, in which case we would reduce our rate of acceleration to let them pass. And there are times when there's nothing happening behind us and we accelerate as normal. So can you see that I've given three different rates that you'd accelerate depending on what was happening behind. So this is why then we need to check our mirrors before we make any change in speed so we can make an appropriate change in speed based on what we see behind us. The same goes for changes in direction. Now by changes in direction I mean moving to the left or to the right. The greater the change in direction over a shorter distance, for example a 90-degree turn at a junction turning to the right, has got extreme danger because someone can be overtaking you. That's why that particular look is called the lifesaver look over the right shoulder. But indeed I would say any shoulder check that could save your life could be called a lifesaver in that. In some of the worst places in a car park, a supermarket car park, if people might be moving across and not moving around the roads they should be, cutting across the bays, etc. So you've got to have eyes in the front, in the side and in the back of your head and out to the sides as well. So rear observation then, combination of mirror and rearward glances. So let's have a look at this one. And the reason I've spent a little bit more time on this one, this is a very, very important area, and it's an area that the car drivers, I think, sometimes especially let themselves down a little bit on because they're used to more effective mirrors on a car. We need to have a combination of rearward glances. So here we go, there's the lorry in the mirror. So it's using the mirrors, and it's also what we said, effective rear observation, we mentioned that. The timing of rearward glances, what does that mean? It means don't be looking backwards for danger that might be behind when there's a greater danger in front. If there is danger in front and you do need to look behind you, do that look earlier so you can get your vision back again to the danger that's in front. So don't be looking back increasing level of danger. Remember, the whole reason for looking behind is to reduce the level of danger to you, not to increase it. So take care then not to veer off course. It's very easy if you've got tense arms and shoulders and stiff neck, etc., to be twisting your whole body, pulling on your arms, and that can make the bike veer off course. Try to relax your arms and shoulders. We'll teach you all this in Element C in the yard, of course. Don't be looking round too late, we mentioned that, looking round when you should be looking forward. And don't be looking round to carry out a lifesaver look, for example, when you should be looking ahead or when you've already committed to turning round. That's what we mean by that one, it's too late. By the time you do your lifesaver look and look round, you've already committed to the turn. The only difference now, you're going to see who's going to kill you. So, mirrors before you signal and changes in speed. Yes, we do that. Mirrors and, if necessary, rear observation before moving off, before changing direction, which could involve, of course, changing lanes or overtaking as well. So, the rear observation then is a very, very important part of the on-road session. It's not just about you looking in front and the mid-ground, the foreground, and out to the distance and out to the sides. It's also about you using your mirrors effectively and being able to carry out rearward glances effectively and safely so that you're fully up to date with what's happening around about you 360 degree. Remember, on a motorbike you don't have a metal shell round about you, so you've got to protect yourself from behind, from the sides and from the front. Right then, on to road positioning next. Your normal road position is the centre of your lane. That's where you're normally going to be positioned, in the centre of your lane. However, if there's loose grit and gravel there, then obviously you would need to be prepared to alter that position to suit. There are times and occasions though when that position will change. Let's have a look at this. There's the rider doing a right hand bend here, not in the corner, not on the crown of the road. So the rider here is sitting on the crown of the road, wrong position. Now, the normal road position is the middle of the lane. However, you're going around the right-hand bend, we position a little bit more to the near side. Imagine the left-hand car track. If it was a left-hand bend, though, we don't go out to the right-hand car track towards the centre line. You would in advanced riding, if it's safe to do so, and it's helping to extend your vision. In the L test, we maintain that, what we call a more central road position. All right? Now, there are times though when you need to maybe alter that position. We'll have a look at them in a moment. So we normally position in the centre of our lane, but again, do take into account any road surface hazards. We might though have to alter our position for hazards, such as parked cars. We already mentioned you're going to have to move out, give at least a door's length. If you can't give a door's length, you're going to have to reduce the speed down or consider holding back. That's what we call meet situations. If you can give more room than the door's length without affecting anyone else, your own safety, anyone else's, or misleading, confusing other, then you would give more room. And obviously dealing with obstructions such as skips at the roadside, etc. And pedestrians, if you're turning into a junction, for example, turning in left, you've got a pedestrian stood there right at the edge of the pavement. If it's an elderly person or a young person, obviously consider giving them now more room. But if you've opened up the gap on your near side, you're going to have to consider that mirror and shoulder check just to make sure nobody's nipping up the inside. So remember, be prepared to give the pedestrians more room. Other road users, yes, got to be prepared to alter position for other road users as well. Bends, we've already mentioned that. Junctions, well, we've shown that if you're turning to the right, you position to the right, and if you're turning to the left, you're slightly left of your normal central position, committing yourself more to left, making it obvious you're commanding your position for going left, and making it clear you are intending to turn left. So position at junctions, and of course we might need to alter a road position to suit the road surface conditions and any surface changes. And of course in single and dual carriageways as well, we might need to alter our position. Our normal position on a single carriageway is the left hand lane, and we'd only really be in the right hand lane if we're positioned for a right hand turn or overtaking. And of course when overtaking we have to alter our position as well. So we're not always going to be in the centre of our lane. In other words, there are times and occasions when we will need to alter our position. Alright, so when riding on the road then, we should always concentrate and avoid, as it says here, riding in the gutter. Moped riders are particularly guilty of this one, riding in the gutter. If you do that, it just encourages the car drivers to squeeze by you and literally push you onto the pavement. So set it a little bit more commanding position. Erratic steering and veering all over the lane. If you do see road surface issues, try to avoid them by all means, but don't go swerving all over the road in order to do it. Failing to return back to the normal position after you've dealt with a hazard, that's another poor example to avoid. And riding in the crown of the road, which was the centre line, is a normal road position. Alright, now next one, separation distance. When we're out there we should have at least a 2-second gap from the vehicle in front. If it's a wet road though, we should double that to at least 4 seconds. So let's have a look at our little diagram we've got to show it. We've got a little saying that we say, there's the motorcyclist here, only a fool breaks the 2-second rule. Took 2 seconds to say that. From this point, only a fool breaks the. We only got to the word the. What's this rider? Only a fool. We got to the word fool. This rider's clearly far too close. Now, why do we need that separation distance? Well, should the vehicle in front suddenly have to brake for a hazard or just brake anyway, we need to be able to have a safe falling distance so that we can stop safely. Alright, now that's what we call only a fool breaks the 2-second rule. Wait till the vehicle in front passes the point and say to yourself, only a fool breaks the 2-second rule. If you're still saying it when you pass the point, you're too close. Now another way of doing it is a metre for every mile per hour. So 20 mile per hour, 20 metres, 30 mile per hour, 30 metres. Now if it's a wet road, you've got to double it. You've got to double that. Okay, so you'd have to say that twice, or if it's 30 mile per hour instead of 30 metres, it would now be 60 metres. Alright, so safe separation distance. So if you've got a safe separation distance from the vehicle in front, especially if it's a large vehicle, it increases your ability to see past the vehicle, so you're still keeping your own vision open ahead of the vehicle, and it means they can now see you in the wing mirrors. If you can see them, they can see you. It also increases the likelihood of being seen by other road users. If you're sitting tucked in close behind vehicles, especially large vehicles, you can be easily missed, especially at junctions. They see the large vehicle passing and not realise you're hidden in behind. So this is what I mean about examples of making yourself visible. Remember what I said, dry road, 2-second rule, and if it's wet, at least double that time interval. And of course doing that lets you stop within the distance that you can see to be clear, safe distances. Alright, so when maintaining the correct separation distance from the vehicle ahead, always allow then for the effect of the road, traffic and the weather conditions have on your stopping distance. Always allow for the blind area of large vehicles. Alright, so take into account those road surface conditions. The next one then, weather conditions. Well, I've already touched on this one, so we can get through this one a bit quicker here. Alright, with the weather conditions. You can imagine what some of the weather conditions are here. and certain weather conditions are going to affect you even more. So the motorcyclists are far more affected by weather conditions such as wind, for example, rain, fog, mist, ice, snow and sleet in the sun. So the wind, of course, we've not got the stability. We're going to get buffeted potentially from side to side, especially crosswind. Don't mind the headwind so much. The tailwind, they're great. The tailwinds. Crosswinds though can really catch you. Heavy rain, remember we said we've not got demisters, we've not got wipers. Fog and mist, reducing visibility. Ice, oh, that's a problem with the traction and the grip. Snow and sleet on the road, and of course even the sun could be blinding us or blinding other drivers. So be aware of the effect the weather conditions can have on you as a motorcyclist. Weather can also have an adverse effect on certain things. For example, oil spillages. If there's a bit of oil on the road and the water comes down, it really spreads, and you'll usually see it as a change in colour, and it looks quite kind of like almost like a rainbow effect, quite light coloured. Painted road markings can become very, very slippy in the wet, especially if there's maybe some oil residue on top and it becomes all wet. And even on a road where it's been maybe sunny for long periods of time, and it's been really dry, and then you get that light shower of rain, the road can feel almost like an ice rink, and that's particularly dangerous for the motorcyclist. Drain covers, they're particularly bad because they're metal, and when they become wet they can become exceptionally slippy. So the weather conditions then can really affect us. Buffeting, even on large vehicles, the motorcyclist going past here, the side wind is going to protect it for the lorry here. It tends to kind of suck the motorcyclist into the side of the lorry because you've been sort of, in effect, you've been sort of leaning against the wind, and then when you get alongside the lorry, the turbulence comes over the top and suddenly you feel yourself getting sucked into the side. And these situations keep more to the right. Then when you get front of the lorry again, you get exposed again. Same on country roads where you could be going along the trees, bushes, hedges, can be protecting you, and then suddenly you come to an open bit where you can be exposed, or the wind could be rushing through the gate on the field. So always be aware of the effect of side winds on a motorcycle, especially if you've got a smaller motorcycle with a fairing on it. It tends to catch the wind, and if you were going further than your CBT and having a pillion passenger, that extra surface area can catch the wind as well. So always respect then the effect of the weather conditions that have on your motorcycle. If you're in doubt at all, don't set out, is basically what we're saying. Now road surfaces, again we've already touched on this one as well, haven't we, the road surfaces. But let's have a look at what's saying then about the road surfaces. As you can imagine, we're more affected by the road surfaces than other road users. For the reasons that we've given earlier, you are more vulnerable, you're not as stable. So let's look at the sort of surface that's going to affect us. Mud and leaves, these are photographs I went out, very, very slippy. There was leaves down, they were starting to mush up and disintegrate, and it was just very, very slippy. So that would be a nightmare. Not so much in a straight line, you can avoid that, but if you're going around a bend and you suddenly hit all the wet mud and leaves, then that's going to cause a lot of instability and a loss of grip. And you're particularly at danger when you're braking, accelerating or leaning. Gravel and chippings, it's like trying to walk on marbles that. So you'll notice the rider's trying to avoid the loose grit and gravel there. Tram and railway lines, not so bad if you're hitting them at right angles, but if you're running along those sort of things in the direction that they're flowing, then that can cause you real problems and issues. Studs, again, they can be shiny and slippy, same as the road markings themselves can be very, very slippy, especially the bolt white arrowheads on approach to junctions and roundabouts, etc. I always try to run the side of them rather than running right over them, especially if it's a wet surface that I'm on. I know in the old test we're advised to ride right in the middle of the lane, but those markings are usually bang slap in the middle, and on a wet day they can be slippy, so I try to brake just to the side of them just for that reason, or drive over them. Drain covers, we already mentioned them. Look at the edge on that, catching that with your tyre as you're turning into or out of a junction or running over that. Braking, leaning, accelerating, that can cause real stability problems, as can shiny surfaces. This was diesel that had been spilt and I went out and took a photograph of that. That would be very, very slippy. Obstructions as well there. I don't know really why I put that one in there because it's not really an effect for the road surface. I don't know why I put that, but maybe I mean obstructions in the road surface. I think that's what I meant, things like bricks and potholes and whatever. And there's the next one, your potholes, right? So motorcyclists then really do need to keep an eye out for the road surfaces and the issues, because car drivers tend not to see them. Remember, you've only got two wheels, only a contact patch about 2 inches wide, and when you're riding, always do take into account the road surface conditions. And it's particularly, as I say, you're at risk when you're cornering, accelerating, or particularly when you're braking. That's when you're most at risk, all right? Now then, alcohol and drugs, we're getting near the end of section D. Goes without saying here that it's bad enough riding a motorcycle and learn to ride a motorcycle, because it relies on balance and judgment and higher order cognitive thinking, that if you are under the influence of alcohol and drugs, it's going to affect your stability, your balance, your powers of reasoning and thought, etc., your judgment, your awareness, your concentration, your focus. So bottom line is, I'm telling you, don't take alcohol and drugs when you're on motorcycles. The restriction is so high now, or restricted so much now with the alcohol, that I would just say assume zero tolerance. Really, that's the best way to look at it. And drugs doesn't just mean non-prescription. That could be prescription medicine where you're advised not to operate machinery or drive. If you're in doubt, check your doctor. So let's see what it says about this one. As I say, a lot of people think when we say drugs, we just mean illegal drugs. No, we mean prescription drugs as well. So, riding a motorcycle calls for, as we said, good concentration, balance, coordination of controls, judgment of speed and distance. Alcohol and drugs impair these skills, so we already said that. It isn't a criminal offence to ride with more than the legal limit. It's so low now that really, is it worth the risk? I would say no. The drink drugs affect your concentration, we said that, and over-the-counter medicine and illegal drugs as well, so we're talking about both here. Check with the doctor if you're in doubt at all. I remember taking night nurse once during the daytime, not a good idea. And of course your insurance policy could be invalidated if you are under the influence of drugs or alcohol as well, so you might find yourself with no insurance. So bring this last bit up, always avoid then riding under the influence of alcohol or drugs. The effects could be fatal. And finally here, there's the limit up here in Scotland anyway, 50 milligrams of alcohol and 100 millilitres of blood. That's very low level. Attitude, very, very quickly, your attitude is in your control, not anyone else. Don't allow yourself to enter into road rage. Don't allow someone else to dictate you. If you're emotionally upset, not in a good place, you're not able to focus and concentrate, is this a good time to go out on the bike? Don't get yourself upset with other people's actions. Don't ride in a spirit of competition, things like that. Show a good example to others. What goes around comes around. Alright, so your attitude then can affect your safety. Consider the following then. If you're angry or upset, are you really concentrating? Are you putting yourself and others at risk? If you're emotionally upset, is your mind really on the job, or are you putting yourself and others at risk? Show patience to other drivers and riders. If you put out a good example to others, then that will hopefully come back. The benefits of riding defensively, of course, is that you stay out of trouble. So show consideration for all road users, everyone, okay? And as I say, hopefully they'll show respect back to you. Try to remain calm even when someone is upsetting you. So, final bit we're going to say is that your attitude is under your control. You could put yourself at additional risk whilst upset, or if you're angry, or if you're riding in a spirit of competition on the road, or if you're giving offence or provoking or upsetting other motorists. Try to rise above it. Try to count to 10. Take deep breaths. Always set a good example, but most importantly up here in Scotland anyway, keep the heat. Alright, very importantly. Now, last bit, I think we're on to Lewis here finally. Hazard perception. We've already kind of mentioned this one, but just mention it briefly again here. The motorcyclist driving along here, he's got a pedestrian crossing in front, kid at the side bouncing the ball. Was the ball going to bounce, shoot across? Got to take that into account. The pedestrian stand at the side here with the dog, etc. Now remember I said that hazards fall into 3 distinct categories, didn't I? So hazards are anything that could put you at potential risk or danger. It could cause you to have to slow down, brake, or even change direction or alter course. And remember we said that the hazards fall into 3 distinct categories: physical features, other road users, and the road surface and weather conditions. We mentioned them previously, I'm not going to go over that again. So, hazard perception then, you need to always plan, look ahead, plan well ahead with regards to your position, your speed. Always try to recognise hazards as early as you possibly can to give yourself time. This is what we call anticipative riding as opposed to reactive riding. So try to anticipate rather than react. Keep high levels of concentration at all times. Don't allow your mind to wander or drift. Use all your senses to develop a feel for danger. That means you might hear danger, you might hear silence, you might smell fresh cut grass and know that there's a tractor around the corner cutting the verges, for example, or you might even smell diesel, could be on the road surface. So use all your senses to try and develop a feel for danger. Try to control your use of speed sensibly to suit the level of danger that's been present. Okay, and always keep yourself up to date with the constantly changing road and traffic situations by, as we said, concentrating at all times, looking well ahead, scanning well ahead, planning and preparing well ahead. And there you go, that concludes element D. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we included a 25-minute session in the classroom there, so that was still about 45 minutes for Element D. Here's some pictures of me racing over the years, and also people have been asking about Lewis. Well, there's a picture of Lewis and his grandfather. They passed their test at the same time. Lewis was 19 and grandfather was 77. Now 81 and 23. There's a picture of them at the end. So we'll see you in the next element. Thank you very much. John Macdonald, over and out.